ayes have it.
It's good to have you join us on the program. I'm Dennis Adigunloye. The executive and legislative arms of government got together in the week for the presentation of the 2022 appropriations bill by President Muhammadu Buhari. Tagged the budget of economic growth and sustainability, both arms of government have been commended for maintaining the collaboration towards sustaining the January to December budget cycle. And in line with this, the National Assembly says it will keep the promise of ensuring the passage of the 2022 appropriation bill before the end of the year. During the budget presentation, the leadership commended the president for submitting the proposal in good time.
The 2021 budget was laid on the 8th of October. That of 2022 came a day earlier. This trajectory enables full implementation of budgets like that of 2022, which since the Fourth Republic made history as the first to be fully implemented, bringing about economic growth despite recession to the benefit of citizens.
Unlike many other countries, Nigeria was able to come out of the recession due to the ability of this administration to deploy the resources to support the economy. Mr. President, the second quarter GDP report released by the National Bureau of Statistics, NBS, Nigeria's gross domestic product GDP increased by 5.01% in the second quarter of 2021. The strongest growth since first quarter of 2014 is a trajectory that we need to sustain.
Ensuring greater fidelity to the letter and spirit of our appropriation laws have led to the measurable improvements in public infrastructure, access to education and housing, healthcare, and transportation, among other things.
The National Assembly leadership called attention on the need to put more efforts on key areas for improvements.
The 2021 budget and indeed the 2020 budget provided for significant infrastructure development across the country. It is imperative that we prioritize the completion of ongoing projects on the development of infrastructure in our country. The 2022 budget should target at completion and consolidation of the projects already started.
Today, innovations in technology, the changing nature of global trade, the challenges of cross-border insecurity, and the increasing interdependence of nations, each and together, continue to present challenges we must overcome and opportunities we must embrace.
Ministries, departments, and agencies of government were also issued words of warning to sustain achievements so far recorded.
Recent position taken by the legislature and the executive arms of government to insist on zero allocation to MDS that failed to remit their revenues for the 2022 appropriation. This saw an increase in the contribution of MDS by over 400 billion. It is my view that MDS can contribute to the Federation account much more than that.
We will demand a thorough accounting for the funds previously appropriated, disbursed, and expended. And we will take steps to hold to account those who fail to provide the records we need to make informed decisions on the appropriation bill.
The National Assembly will in the coming weeks be engaged in the scrutiny of the proposal to ensure the delivery of a near-perfect document.
Meanwhile, Nigerians and members of the National Assembly have described the 2022 budget proposal by President Muhammadu Buhari as a budget that will consolidate on the gains being recorded in the country.
Well, the budget has just been laid. We don't want to put, we don't want to jump the gun. We would like to scrutinize, look it deeply before we make comment. It's really not proper to begin to make comment on what has been presented. We have to look at it, study very well, then we can make an informed comment about what has been presented.
We hope and believe that within the next few months, before the end of December, the budget will be passed by the National Assembly, and then the whole process will all start all over again.
The President made a pronouncement sometimes earlier this year. Said this administration will be remembered for succeeding and not for failure. And this budget is the last budget that we will be fully involved with this government. Because by the time the 2023 budget comes, a lot of the aversion of interest to politics and the election would have taken place. So this presentation that the President made, this proposal that he has, would appear to be very, very, very deeply encompassing. The emphasis is to complete projects that have been started. That is the priority. And the percentage of capital project is higher than the others, than the recurrent and the overheads. This is very encouraging. And the report on the performance of budget this far for 2021 is again most encouraging. We can see the shift to good governance, the shift to fiscal responsibility that this government is, not only advocating but is championing.
But the issue of borrowing has remained an issue of...
The issue of borrowing, you take it or you leave it. The President was very, very polite. He said he understands and agrees with the emotions being expressed on borrowing. But the fact of the matter is, you want project, and project can only be done with money. And when the revenues are dwindling, there's nothing you can do but to borrow. There's nothing wrong in borrowing. I keep saying this time and again. What is important is, what is the money being borrowed for? Is the project that the debt is being incurred upon really being implemented? Are the debts being applied for the completion of these infrastructure-based projects? My answer is a big yes. It's yes. What we don't want to see happen is you borrow money and people don't see where it is going. Anybody who has got a fair sense of judgment cannot deny the fact that this administration, more than any that can remember in the immediate memory, has done more for accountability and for ensuring that infrastructure budget. If we don't develop infrastructure, we will not move the economy. And nature, we can't do so without money. So where there are deficiencies, we have to go about borrowing. And that's why we support 1,001 times, as long as we have still reason for the borrowing. And we can justify the reasoning given to us. So what is going to borrow, we will support. I will support.
Well, basically, what we have seen here is a determination of the government not to give up. A budget of a nation will continue to grow based on perspectives, based on programs and policies. We have a massive, implementation of capital infrastructure going on in the country. There's a need to sustain that, and there's a need to also break new ground. A number of new capital projects are going to be implemented. There's also the need to increase spending in some sectors, of our economy. If you take, for instance, humanitarian affairs, that is part of the reasons why this budget, got increased than what we had last year, because there's the need to further inject, fund into the ongoing programs and implement them on a larger scale. If you look at the judiciary, if you look at Human Rights Commission, if you look at various agencies of government that are getting some additional funding, this year, is partly in response to the public outcry that they need to be better funded. But I think what is most important is to ensure that these funds are well implemented, and that we stay on course. And as to the various aspects of borrowing, part of what we're also interested in the National Assembly, is to ensure that every naira that is borrowed by this country is applied in a way that we are spending more on capital projects and not on consumables, and also to ensure that it's being spent in a way that will percolate, down the strata of the economy and will further grow our economy and will further spend our way out of recession. All of these are important, and the need for us to also do our oversight functions as a National Assembly to ensure that Nigerians get the value for the money that they are investing through this expenditure. All of these are important. Part of what we have been assured by Mr. President is that no honorable minister, permanent secretary, or head of agency would travel during the period of our budget defense. If we will have to suspend plenaries as a National Assembly for us to be able to ensure that we create the time for budget defense, there will be no excuse why any head of agency will not come to the National Assembly to defend their budget. It's not just to defend the budget estimate for 2022. It's also to come and give us a report of the budget performance for 2021, because that's what will determine whether or not any agency deserves to even be appropriated any fund for 2022. So all of this will go together.
Away from the budget process, the Senate has confirmed the nomination of 4 persons for appointments as chairman, chief executive and executive directors for the board of the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority. This followed the consideration of the report of the Senate Committee on Petroleum Resources Downstream, which screened the nominees. The committee described the nominees as knowledgeable persons qualified for the positions.
Idari Ogogo Ogan, Chairman, Faruk A. Ahmed, Chief Executive, Abiodun Adeneji, Executive Director, Finance and Accounts, Ogbogu Oka, Executive Director, Distribution Systems, Storage and Retail Infrastructure. The nominees responded to the questions asked in factual and convincing manner. They exhibited a high-level understanding of the entire petroleum value chain.
And time is of essence, and this is an authority that will lay a foundation, and therefore they need to work hard, they need to be selfless. What they do is going to impact very significantly on the reform of the petroleum industry in Nigeria.
Senate leader Yahaya Abdullahi and other legislators in the week spoke on some important national issues, including the need for Nigerians to remain united and to harness unity in diversity, among other issues of national discourse. Here are some of their perspectives.
We are not the only, APC is not the only party in the legislature. It's not only, PDP has about 40 something, we have about 61 or so. So 40-something is a big chunk in the legislature. Ask any of the PDP legislators whether decisions, that have been taken on the floor of the Senate, have been decisions that are partisan. Only on one occasion, since when we came to power, that we did a partisan thing on the Electoral Act, which is, I don't think that is a minor thing. Electronic transmission or no electronic transmission. Even that one, the APC senators are not saying we should not transmit electronically. What they are saying is that the network coverage is not enough. So let us have some guarantees that certain votes count. That's all. But the issue of whether there is going to be electronic transmission, we are all on the same page. And even some of the PDP people who insisted on that, there is a lot of them, we know them, a lot of them insisted on that party line vote because their party asked them to do so. So some of them who are even leadership, I myself went to them and said, please stay where you are, so that you don't suffer, from any wrath from your own party. So it's not, but apart from that, we did everything together. And when you look at the votes that we garnered by our principal officers, it's not APC vote. No, the Senate President, the Deputy Senate President, these are not APC votes. These are votes, bipartisan votes. So we have been running the Senate on a bipartisan basis. My best friend in the Senate is the minority leader, Distinguished Senator Abariwe. When you see us together, you think that we are brother and sister. Of course, we may have some of our differences on the floor, but always we find a way of finding some accommodation to ensure that the work of the legislator goes on, unhindered. Because we know that we have a responsibility, both to Nigerians and also to our colleagues. So we always try to make sure that the issues we bring before the Senate are issues that bring harmony, among ourselves first, and some measure of understanding. So before we even go on the floor, we sit down and hammer out all gray areas, so that by the time we go on the floor of the Senate, all we need to do is to report. He reports to his caucus, I report to my caucus, and we have a harmony, so that on the basis of that. So of the major decisions that have been on the floor of the House were proposed by PDP legislators, and they became Senate positions. So the issue is that we have to look at the history of the nation, the role of the various arms of government with some measure of understanding and trepidation. I say trepidation because the future of our country is at stake, and the future of our country and the safety of our citizens and their welfare is the most important. A lot of people have been talking about over the years we are accumulating a lot of deficits. Yes, we are. But the issue is, we are in a transition. How do you run a government on a very narrow revenue base? And we have not been able over the years to grow the economy so that we can make sure that the informal sector, the sector of the economy, is strong enough to pay the taxes that are required to run the country. So in the absence of that, the moment you say you are not going to take any debt, then it means that you are grounding the whole economy. And then you have not just recession, the economy, you have stagflation, and things are going to be so tight. And once you have stagflation, you have chaos. So in order to avoid chaos, let us find out the ways in which we can run around this. That's why we are doing a lot of these reforms, institutional reforms in the transport sector, in the financial sector, in all of these sectors, so that we can be able to reduce the level of investment of loans that government takes to do capital projects. If we can open up these sectors and allow private sector participation in them, then the amount of resources that the government needs to expand in the real sector will be less. So gradually we will be accumulating less and less and less and less debts. But the major problem that we have is that we are working on an old paradigm. The paradigm has been that, and that's the paradigm that has been there since colonial rule. That ministries are regulators, they are policy makers, they are also executors, which means that the whole burden of government, both in terms of administration and governance and development, is on government. No nation runs like that. So when we make legislation, we take it to the ministry. They will say, oh, no, you are taking away our responsibility and giving it to this. You can see what we are doing with the petroleum sector, with the petroleum industry. Now, a lot of those sectors, this is the kind of reform that they require. We require this in the road, in the transportation sector. We require this kind of in the financial sector. We require this so that investors will come. Say in the infrastructure sector, you have to open up so that people, both foreign and domestic investors, can come into this and put their resources in. When you do that, you don't need any school bond. You don't need to go with any money, borrow any money from outside the country to build railways. You don't need to go to China to build. People will come and put their money, so that they can. But once the laws, there's no clarity in laws. There's no clarity in institutional, with the working of institutions. Nobody will take his money, and bring. There is a lot of money out there in the world looking for where to invest. But because there is no clarity in your institutional arrangement and your legal regime about the safety of their funds, you are not going to get it. So the only way the government can be able to get it is to go and borrow. Now, if you borrow, you have to borrow in order to feed, just like your family. If you had a bad day, you have a bad harvest, are you going to say that your family will die, because of the bad harvest? All you need to do is to go and borrow for your neighbor who has a good harvest, so that you can feed your family and get better labor, so that next time when you go to farm, you can get more, so that you can also pay. But you are not going to say that, oh no, I don't want that, so, and allow your own family to die. You won't do that. So this is the same thing, the way you manage your family, the way governments also manage an economy. So we have to sit down and do paradigm shifts, and this one we have to carry the existing arm of government, particularly the public service. But this country has a great future with the earth-shaking legislations that this assembly has started.
The teething problems Nigeria is facing, if you take that problem and take to some state that you want to compare Nigeria with, they will never survive it. But here is Nigeria surviving it. That tells you Nigeria is unique. That tells you Nigeria is blessed. And I think if we appreciate God, there is this saying that, of course, if God does you anything and you appreciate, God will add. If we are talking about bad leaders, did they drop from the sky? They came from Nigerian society. If we are talking about good leaders, they came from Nigerian society. So all of us have a duty, both those who are being governed and those who are governing, to this country. And if we put our acts right, we can achieve greatness for this country. Because I know Nigeria's greatness is yet to come. And it will come in our lifetime, inshallah.
If you are talking about national unity, this flag I'm holding, this is the strongest symbol of our national unity, the national flag. If you are looking at this flag, if you look at this green, white, green, you will not see your tribe, you will not see your religion, you will not even be conscious of your gender, you will not see your political affiliation. I mean, whether you are Christians or Muslims, Hausas, Igbos, Yorubas, just wherever you are, this flag reminds you that you are first and foremost a Nigerian. And so every action in our official capacity, in our individual capacity, must be based on first consideration of national interest. What is it that, whatever is good for you as an Igbo man, for me as where I come from, whatever is good for you, at least we share humanity in common.
What I want to contribute there is just an appeal. I remember during the Civil War, I was 15 years old during the Civil War. And when the war ended, I'm from South. There's a song we used to welcome General Kubugawan immediately after the war. I will sing it now. We salute you, General Gowon, great commander, you are welcome. Welcome, welcome to our state. Grace of God, we are one. I will see one today. We fight the Civil War. I witness it. Those who does not witness Civil War wouldn't know what we are talking about. War is not good for this country again. And those days is a primitive, because what is happening there now is not the same. And no country go for second war and survive it. My own is just an appeal. I'm appealing to Muhammadu Buhari. I'm appealing to Osibanjo. I'm appealing to National Assembly. Let us keep religion aside. Let us keep politics aside and embrace peace and make sure this country move well again.
Yeah, basically, number one, we have to congratulate Nigerians and thank President Muhammadu Buhari for changing the budget cycle, which is very, very significant. You know, past governments have always delayed budgets, which has brought so many problems to the country, and you know, we used to find it extremely difficult for us to be able to implement the budget in time, you know. But now he has set a very good precedence, you know, that Nigerian budget will be ready by December, you know. So, and once it is approved by the National Assembly, then by January we should be looking into implementation rather than talking about budgeting, budget. You'll be talking about budget from October, November, December to January into the next quarter of the next year, which is not really, that does not show seriousness at all. But right now this is a very good precedence, you know.
And how would you assess the relationship, the collaboration between the executive and the 9th National Assembly? We saw all the challenges that happened during the last assembly with rancor and differences. How would you assess this time around?
This time around is fantastic, basically because, naturally there will be some kind of friction between executives and also the legislatures, but there is no much friction this time around purposely because they are all on the same page looking and considering the situation of the country now. You know, it is not the issue of opposition right now. That is why we are even, not just the National Assembly, we are calling on even the politicians and everybody to please support the government right now and support Nigeria. Nigeria is in our knees, so all Nigerians' hands has to be on deck in ensuring that the security returns to Nigeria. So everybody must play his role in whatever sector he is, both executive, legislature, and also judiciary, and also the police and armed forces, and also we the citizens, you know, both in private and private sector and politicians as well. You know, we should keep the political differences aside and come for Nigeria. Stand for Nigeria so that we'll be able to defeat the challenges that are staring us in our eyes right now.
Well, that concludes Senate 109 for this week. Thanks for your time. Till next week, I am Dennis at Digunluye. Bye for now.